got some other ones as well. It just means there's some promotions I'm not going to be running back to, in a sense, just because the way they're trying to run the promotion. It's basically a trickle-down effect of negativity to a degree. It's like, you haven't got any sponsors, so then the promoter's like, well, we're not going to pay you because we haven't got any sponsors, and then you're left with the fighter who needs to shift tickets, which are really expensive at times. I mentioned Skilly because I've seen him fight on the same shows we've always fought, and I've got no issues with the guy. But in a sense, it's trying to get to the top to be fun. Anyone can get it, like I said. So you know.
What's good, people? Welcome to the Weighing Podcast. So today we've got Ali Bomaye.
Yes, Ali Bomaye.
Straight up, a fighter out of Bloodline Gym in Hackney.
Cool, thanks for having me today, guys.
Yeah, man, big up. A fighter with over 10 years experience, right?
Yeah, I started 13 years ago, actually. I started training 13 years ago. I only started competing. So I started at the age of 12, 13. But I only started competing at the age of 17.
What made you start competing?
So it's funny, actually. So I've got a younger sister.
Yeah.
And she has, to this day, still more interclubs than I've ever had.
Really?
Yeah. So
Savage. I like that. I like that.
She always used
Girl
to compete.
power.
She always used to compete, and then I was like, well, I want to compete. And then, long story short, I didn't get to compete at the time. The coach was like, no, you're not going to do it. And then it was like a last-minute replacement. He was like, so, Ali, there's a spot. We can get you fighting on the weekend. I said, all right, cool, let's go.
Nice.
Sorry, Ali, could you just pull the mic towards you a little bit? Is that right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
They're better.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, last minute sort of drop out, end up fighting, done all right, and just carried on fighting since then.
Yeah.
So that was one of the reasons why, because my sister was doing it. So I was like, I want to do it as well.
You've got a family of savages, isn't it? Like your mum trained
Yeah.
as well.
So in fact, the reason why I started training initially was because my mum took me down to my first class.
I love that.
Yeah, that's sick.
So there was that. I mean, growing up, we've always done things as a family, as in martial arts. Like, it was always nice family time. Was watching like Jackie Chan movies and stuff like that. So pretty cool. But yeah, so that was essentially how I got into Muay Thai initially.
Yeah, nice. And then obviously you did university, right?
Yeah. So I went to uni, studied at King's College, graduated as a physiotherapist.
Nice.
So graduated in summer of 2018, I believe it was.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I've been working in sort of the NHS at the moment.
Nice.
Been doing that since graduating, which is pretty cool. Busy schedule, but it's alright. Good sort of vibes working in NHS. Also work privately as well. So there's definitely sort of pros and cons to doing both.
Yeah. Yeah, sound nice. So with that said, moving with that and knowing so much about the body, I guess it's good to get a little intel for the fighters.
Yeah.
And everyone moving forward. So what's the best way of approaching it as a fighter in regards to recovery and like taking the time? Because you know so much about the body, you know, when you go to war on a regular basis.
Yeah, so the body's pretty sore after going for a fight.
Yeah, a little taster, but not as savage as you two. Do you know what I mean? It's just...
So, I mean, let's talk about in general, and then we'll sort of talk about
cool.
sort of post-fight stuff. But in general, sleep is one of the biggest things that people neglect.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's tricky when you're sort of working sort of full time and then you're also training alongside it, and then you're up in the morning when fight comes, trying to get your runs in and whatever else. So it is tricky, but fundamentally sleep is a big thing that people sort of miscalculate or underappreciate.
Yeah.
So we should be getting at a standard about 8 hours sleep. A lot of people don't, including myself at times.
Yeah, that's quite difficult to get. 8 hours sleep.
It is. You know what we were talking about en route here as well. I drink so much water that I end up waking up in the middle of the night. You know what I'm saying? Having to run to, and that disrupts my sleep. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I try my best to go to the toilet bare time before bed. Do you know what I mean? But
so try to have a cut-off point in terms of how much. What
but
time
it's just one of them, innit? Do you know what I mean? Because I end up training late at night and then going home. I'll have my food and whatnot, a glass of water, and I love a cup of tea before bed. Yeah. And then that's my little thing. Do you know what I mean? But
yeah. So I mean, try to do that. But in regards to that, so I only sort of really obviously studying the body, and you learn a bit more about it as well. But then what really sort of switched me on into the sleep was actually listening to a podcast by a neuroscientist known as Matthew Walker.
Oh yeah.
Matthew Walker, he's really good. He's got some TED Talks. He's been on like Joe Rogan, whatever else, and but essentially he's relating, if you consistently deprive yourself of sleep, One, is going to have detrimental effects to your health anyway, long term.
Yeah.
But two, in relation to being an athlete or fighter, it sort of, if you get 7 hours or less sleep, you've actually in a state of intoxication or similar to being in a state of intoxication. So imagine, I don't drink, but imagine you were drinking, etc.
Yeah.
Then it'd be a similar thing to that.
Oh wow.
That you're depriving your performance, and for every sort of hour you lack of sleep, it has a certain effect on your performance. But it's a pretty decent podcast to sort of be listening to.
Yeah, get the fundamentals.
But other than that, it's your standard stuff which everyone's been talking about for years, which is the boring stuff. Trying to do your mobility drills, trying to make sure that you're stretching after classes. Again, difficult with time as well, but you want to try to make sure you're sort of building within your routine.
So is it stretching before training and after training, or just
is
there one preferred than the other?
So it's trying to do a mixture in that. So before training, a lot of people in the past anyway used to do like static stretches. Static being you stand still, you hold a position.
Yeah.
Right? As you're warming up, what you should really do is start doing a few more dynamic stretches. So you're moving through your stretch, and try to make it relate to what you do. So if you've got a sort of Muay Thai day, make sure you're stretching out your hamstrings, your adductors, quads, etc. But if you're just doing like a weight day, you want to make sure you're mobilizing your thoracic spine, your upper back, and stuff like that as well. But at the end of the session is better to be doing a static stretch. So you're holding a position for a bit more time, gives you a bit more length in that sense. But one of the biggest things actually learning as physio is to maintain your flexibility. You actually need to build your strength within there. So you may have sort of experienced yourself. You get some people who do like try to do the splits for ages. And I'm like, wow, nothing's progressing. It's because you're not changing the resistance. You need to change the resistance by actually adding a weighted sort of complex to it. So you could either use a resistance band, a sort of dumbbell, kettlebell, etc. So if you're trying to squat deeper, for example, one, yes, you may just go into a deep squat and hold against the pole, etc. But then at some point you need to change the resistance to maintain that, which is why people often stretch for ages and still can't kick that high. Because they're not really progressing their stretches. But that's what I'd say in regards to that. Okay,
thank you for sharing that. So in terms of rest and recovery, like post-fight, what do you recommend?
So post-fight, one of the things is which I'd recommend is compression. So they call it price actually, in the price protocol, which is basically protect the area. In other words, don't kick anyone after that if your shins are hurting. There's that. You need to sort of rest as much as you can. We could talk about the rest and how to move after that. But you've got your icing, so ice, compression, and elevation. So straight after a fight, what I generally do is compress or get a bandage on across my shins, even if at the time you'd feel it's okay. Just because the adrenaline is still pumping through your body, so you're like, no, I'm alright, and then you want to go celebrate and you want to go meet with your friends, etc. But no. First things first, like wrap my shins because I know what it's like after that. And then after that, it's the when I can sit down, put some ice on my shins as well, and get my hands wrapped off, etc. 15-20 minutes, and then when I can and get a seat actually, by the end of the night, elevate my shins as well. So keep my foot above my hip, just because that's the way it helps in regards to draining the body. You actually need to be higher than your hip in that sense. So that's in regards to straight after a fight. But then
what's an occurrence if that's not taken seriously? Like what can be the detrimental to that?
So if you don't really do that, you're just going to have your shins sore for longer. In other words, you're not going to be able to get back trained as quickly as one would if they did do that. Because and once you fight, you do that or you don't do that, and then you go back to the gym the same week, and you're like, okay, let me move about, and then it's sometimes a few weeks before you can actually start hitting the pads properly. Just because of the natural healing rates within the body. You've got the way sort of the body lays down different tissue. There's various stages. But it's in a sense you've created some sort of trauma to the area. So then the muscle fibers aren't no longer linear. In a sense, if you've got like your muscle tissue, etc., all in this position, once you start causing trauma, you're going to get a breakage in that, which means that it's may be a bit more sort of clenched in a sense. So in a sense, what the body tries to do is lay down new fibers to protect the area and actually get the area stronger. Now, if you're not actually applying any load for it, again, any sort of pressure over the coming weeks, even during or straight after the fight, then that will sort of delay how much you actually delay the sort of speed you can get back to training kicking pads. So in a sense, it's
how long after you fight do you get back in the gym? Because I know there's a lot of some people take rest, some people take like long times off. How long do you get back in the gym? Does it depend whether you win or you lose? Like, Yeah. What gets you back in the gym after a fight?
So generally speaking, I try to get into the gym. So let's say I fight on Saturday.
Yeah.
I try to get into the gym on Monday, Tuesday. That's just me.
Really?
Regardless of win or loss.
And doing what though? What?
So it's more of an active recovery rather than I'm not going in and smashing pads.
So elaborate on that.
So active recovery being I'm going to try to move my body a bit more, start getting a little bit of a sweat on, and start moving the body. You know, so generally speaking, you can have sore shins. You know, doing Muay Thai, kickboxing. You know, and whatever else. You're not going to be kicking the pads, especially at all. In the first session, I'm not kicking the pads at all. So I may do a bit of boxing. I may just do some stretching, just get the heart rate up a little bit. Yeah. Irregardless of whether I win or lose, to be honest. Now, if you lose, obviously you don't really want to show your face in the gym a lot of the time, so you don't really want to go. But I still try and make a point of going. It would also depend on when your next fight is, and what your schedule's sort of demanding. If you're able to go into the gym, then do that. However, there's also a bit of misunderstanding in that you're not going 100%. You've just had a 6 to 8 week fight camp. Your body's ramping up and peaking to this certain point. You have your fight on Saturday. Naturally, your body's going to start to dip. It needs to dip. You can't maintain that same 100% effort. So when you go into the gym in that week, again, it's a few times that week. It's not every single day. You need to make sure you give your body enough time to recover. You need to make sure you give enough time to actually, deload to a degree because you've been going like intense for a bit of a while. But so that's what I'd say. I'd usually try to get in, but everyone's slightly different. Some people like to take a week off. And reset.
I think I'd take the week off. You know, just do some yoga.
But some people lose, and then they're in the gym the next day.
I guess that's that savage mentality, don't it? You gotta be patterned a certain way, like in your mind, to be able to do what you do. Do you know what I mean? Surely, like.
So I think it's tricky because if you win or lose, let's say you win. Usually you're quite happy that you won, etc.
Yeah, of course.
You know, so people are a bit more forgiving to themselves. You know? When you lose, it's like, you know, it plays on your mind a bit. You know, there's a big psychological element in regards to fighting. Sometimes you feel that you didn't do enough, and sometimes you feel you made stupid mistakes or silly mistakes to cause it. So you're sort of beating yourself up inside, and the only way to sort of relieve that often for most fighters is to go into the gym and actually hit things. You know, and to sort of try to correct the same mistakes, because often, more time than not, you know, you're making the mistake yourself. You're not always in regards to losing anyway. More time than not, you're not purely outclassed, you know, because you'd hope that you're training to a good level and good standard where you're not just being, you know, completed. Because if you are being outclassed in a fight, and you're like, okay, well, clearly your levels apart in regards to who you're fighting. And sometimes it's like, well, that's the case. But I mean, in regards to sort of my sort of record, I've had 14 pro fights. Record's not too bad, but on there I've had 4 losses, so 10 wins, 4 losses. Now those 4 losses, I'd biasedly say that I only...
Let's talk about these losses. Let's talk about these losses. Are there any losses that you know that you think that you maybe was cheated out?
3 of them. 3 of the 4.
Whoa, 3.
Really, yeah.
Again, people are going to say I'm biased and whatever else. Yeah, maybe. Just a little bit. But no, in regards... Alright, so let me try to explain that. So the first one...
Who was it?
I'm trying to... give me 1 second. So... Alright, let me work retrospectively. Right, so I fought Chris. I lost that one. Hands down, he won that one. He won that fight. Do I think if I fought him again, I'd beat him? Yeah. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, man.
And so that was that. He gave me my first and my only, to this day, sort of 8 count. Sort of flash knockdown, came back up straight away, got back on with it. So that was that. Lost that one. Fought over in Slovakia against what's in there, Helbich. Again, I thought I was cheated in that one. I thought I beat him 2 rounds to 1. But it's difficult when you're going across borders and you're fighting someone in their own hometown. You know, in a sense, you need to go with the mindset that you're gonna get a knockout, otherwise you're gonna lose. So there was that, and then I fought Alidond, the Grand Prix. So I fought in London that time. I thought I won it. Again, under K1 rules, I would have run it. Under Muay Thai rules, he would have won it. But again, we're fighting K1.
What was you fighting?
So I usually fight K1 rules, kickboxing rules. Just because I find it suits my style better. But under that rule set, I should have won that fight. But again, judge's decision. And similar thing for Rob. Rob's a really nice guy, actually. Of all the fighters I've actually, fought against, Like usually you're quite cordial with them after you have a catch or whatever else. But no, Rob Zavidis, he's a cool guy. Yeah, really cool. Yeah. Maybe I'll fight him again one day. Who knows?
Would you like rematches against these, these fighters that you feel that you've been
redemption?
Yeah, so it would be good to fight against them. Tricky thing is I'm no longer fighting at the weight class I was fighting at before.
Okay.
So I'm a bit lower than before.
What are you fighting at?
So now fighting 70, 71.
Yeah.
Yeah. So between 70 and 72 really. But working my way down to that low weight. Whereas all the other ones, which we lost, were about 76, 77 kilos. So I was there, yeah. So
you find you perform better at a lighter weight or heavier weight?
Oh, that's always a tricky one. It depends on
how weight cut and stuff. How much do you cut? How much weight do you cut?
So it varies.
It varies.
So, okay. So it can vary. So I've had really short weight cuts in that I've cut 3 kilos, but then I've also had weight cuts where I've cut about 8 kilos.
Is that the most you've ever cut? Be honest.
That's the most I've cut the week of a fight.
So you cut 8 kilos in a week?
Yeah. Wow. Not healthy at all. Don't do it. It's not healthy. But that was wow. But usually, like I said, personally, for my own body, because you learn about your body, I think 4 or 5 kilos is good for me.
Okay.
Yeah. That's not too bad. Yeah. But again, it just varies depending on how my training camp went, where I started off, how short of a notice the fight was. Obviously, if you know about it, you'll get more time to plan these things.
Yeah. Will you take fights on short notice?
I'm happy to. Yeah, provided I'm training and everything else,
anyone can get it.
Anyone can get it. Anyone can get it. But but it's just at the moment working a good schedule where I'm consistently training, which means that at a drop of a dime, if I need to take a fight, I'll take a fight.
And how do you manage these weight cuts? Like you said, sometimes you've cut 8 kg, sometimes you've cut 3. Like mentally, like how do you manage? How do you prepare for these weight cuts? Like
they're heavy. Do you know what I mean? How much is too much?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? There's a couple of people who I've spoken to, do you know what I mean? Even in Bloodline and stuff, 15 kilograms, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, fully depleting the body, you know what I mean? A week before it. And
so how much is too much would vary depending on the individual.
And knowing what you know as well, do you know what I'm saying?
So knowing what I know, in an ideal world, no one would weight cut, including myself. No one would weight cut. Just because, one, it doesn't make sense to be weight cutting, but everyone does it, so it's continued to be done.
Why do you think everyone does it? Like, what do you think needs to happen for people just stop weight cutting?
So there just needs to be sort of. So ONE FC in the sort of Far East, they're doing they're the best or the leading sort of promotion in regards to the weight cutting at the moment. Yeah. It's not a flawless system, but it's the best we have at the moment, which hasn't come over to the UK yet. Okay. So they do hydration tests. So they will do multiple weight cut sort of weigh-ins to see how dehydrated you are. Yeah. If you are more dehydrated, then essentially they call us fight by a certain percentage. Yeah. So that's what I'd say needs to get done. I think historically everyone's weight cut, so that's what it is. Everyone's trying to get sort of the best of their opponent to a degree. But in a sense, if you're both weighing in the same, then surely you can just both fight the same weight. Yeah. But the tricky thing is what people try to do is they drop a lot of weight and then go back up straight after. And depending on the individual would determine how much you can actually cut. Yeah. Generally speaking, the more muscle mass you have, so the leaner you are, the more water you can reduce, just because the water's in the muscles, which means you're then able to rehydrate. So in a sense, what people are trying to do is the day of the fight, they're trying to be heavier than their opponent, which in their mind is one, a psychological benefit, two, they want to make sure that they can sort of push people around.
That's the thing,
It's a really tricky balancing act in that if you do it wrong, then it doesn't feel good. So I've had a couple of bad weight cuts, but the worst one, and this was when my mindset changed, was when I was fighting. This was a few years, maybe about three-ish years ago. But I went into the fight, and I was like, all right, I need to move. And my legs didn't want to move.
Really?
Yeah.
My legs did not want to move.
For real.
And it was like, you could see all the punches, the kicks coming towards you, and you're like, why can't I respond? Yeah. You just feel fatigued. Yeah. Like, generally speaking, you're going to be tired in the fight anyway. But it's like, when your body doesn't want to respond, and you're just a few seconds behind your opponent, then it's not good. I mean, the reason why I also think that weight cutting isn't the best thing is sort of from a scientific point of view, you're dehydrating your brain.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
And you're taking hits to the brain,
So when you're in a dehydrated state, you're more likely to cause sort of damage to your brain. Now, it's, I guess, a bit more openly spoken about in this day and age, about sort of effects of fighting, and I think people are under the, they understand that there is going to be an element of sort of, it's not the healthiest thing to be doing, getting punched in. It's not the healthiest thing to do, but there are things you can do to try to, protect yourself. That goes through weight cutting correctly, and make sure you're not doing massive amounts of weight, because really and truly, when you're dehydrating, it's you really need like 72 hours to actually rehydrate yourself, rehydrate your brain. I was reading something today. It was like, for 3% of dehydration of the body, and that varies between the individual, it can reduce an impact on your pulmon's by about 30%. So it has a significant impact, but people are still doing it just because it's the way it's meant to be done, or what people think it's the way it's meant to be done. So it's tricky, and it's a sort of catch-22 in a sense, because you want to make sure you are fit enough, but you also want to make sure that you're not small or too small, because that's the thing. I've found in the past that I've been into a fight, I haven't really weight cut, felt great, but then the next day the people are huge.
See, well, that's it, and that's why it exists. Realistically, if you're calling a spade, then that is kind of it. Isn't it? So going back to the original question, where do you feel most comfortable? Like,
where do I feel most comfortable?
Cutting less or cutting more? In regards to what you just elaborated on then as well, do you know what I mean?
So for me, I find a good middle for me. And I know it's sort of sitting on the fence sort of answer, but I think
that's cool.
I think that's
not too much, so I wouldn't do 8 kilos or anything else. I know that I just need to plan my weeks and make sure I can consistently and slowly reduce the weight. So I think 4 or 5 kilos for me is not too bad. But again, that may be too much for someone, Again, you need to think about the percentage of how much a person's losing. Let's say you get someone who's 50 kilos, 10% of their body weight, it's 5 kilos. Whereas you get someone who's 100 kilos, 10% of body is going to be a lot less, So, in regards to 10 kilos. But then if someone said who's 100 kilos says, oh, they're only going to cut like 5 kilos, that's 5% of their body weight compared to the 50 kilo person who's cutting, 10% of body weight. So it's going to have a different impact depending on the person. So I think that's definitely something to sort of factor as well.
So in terms of the UK fight scene and you as a fighter, where do you see yourself going? Do you want to fight on more promotions in the UK, or do you want to see what's out there? Because I know you fought in Poland, in Slovakia.
So
how did that differ? How did that differ as well to fighting in the UK?
It's a different, I don't know, I found I had a different mindset. So fighting in UK is all good, and a lot of my fights have been in London or near London. So for me, it's kind of like, oh, you're just sort of going up the road and you can have a fight. Are there
any promotions in the UK that you really like fighting on? Are there some that you really don't like fighting on that could do a lot better in terms of looking after their fighters?
So you're trying to get me to name and shame?
Not name and shame, but just name. Let them know, give them feedback.
Cool. All right. So it's tricky because there's only a few promotions out there in terms of sort of the high level, right? Okay. So at the moment, let's talk about face value anyway. Muay Thai Grand Prix or Kickboxing Grand Prix is meant to be the biggest promotion in the UK. Generally speaking, I think the dynamic between the promoter and the fighter, there's always going to be a bit more of a favour in the promoter's direction. I think that's just how fight sports generally are. So I think if there's a shift in that'd be great, in regards to sort of how fights are treated and whatever else, in regards to sort of pay and I mean, kickboxing hasn't got the most sort of backing financially from sort of sponsors and whatever else, which I think is a big issue in regards to the sport itself. Which means that you're not going to get as many eyes, which means that promoters will be like, well, we're not going to pay, and then you're like, okay, well, then you sort of you're like, well, okay, it's basically a trickle down effect of negativity to a degree. It's like you haven't got any sponsors, so then the promoters are like, well, we're not going to pay you because we haven't got any sponsors, and then you're left with the fighter who needs to shift tickets, which are really expensive at times, especially if you're fighting in certain promotions. So it's nice to fight in like venues such as the O2, venues such as York Hall. Although I didn't like fighting in York Hall. It was way too cold. Way too cold. But saying that, it's a historic venue, and a lot of people want to fight in the York Hall. So I think there's that. I think generally speaking, as a promoter, if you're out there, you just need to try to be mindful that your fighters are going out there and entertaining for you and for the fans.
Yeah.
You know?
Sure.
Bottom line, yes, you can replace them and get someone else, but then you're not really building a character. You're not building a career. You're not building a following.
Yeah.
You know?
Do you think it would be good if, like, promoters reduce the price of the tickets and then packed out stadiums, packed out venues, and then got people to sponsor based on how many people will see their sponsorship, will see their brands? Would that work?
I think that'll work. I mean, so look, you either get some, and I know you mentioned Muay Thai Grand Prix. It's not sort of the promotion.
You mentioned Muay Thai Grand Prix.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. So I wasn't trying to name and shame them as such. But so you got Raw Combat. I've never fought on that. You've got Super Fight Series, who've in the past I've fought on there a couple of times.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's once or twice. You know, and then you've got some
other
ones.
What does that mean?
It just means there's some promotions I'm not going to be running back to, in a sense.
Yeah.
Just because the way they're trying to run the promotion.
All right.
You know, then there's a few others up north. There's Yokkao for the Muay Thai guys as well. A couple of my teammates fighting there. Again, that's seen as the biggest promotion for Muay Thai. You know, but it's only when you start getting within the inner circle you realise actually fights could be treated better.
Yeah.
Because we're there to entertain, and at the end of the day, there's not really much compensation. But then you get people who aren't actually stepping into the ring, still profiting.
Yeah.
I think going back to your question of whether you should have option A of having a venue with high ticket prices without many eyes in there, versus a venue with really packed venue with sort of cheaper ticket prices. I think that's probably the way to go. Option B, in that you're only going to grow the sport to a degree by getting more people involved. Because once you get more people viewing and engaging, then you have a bit more sort of leverage when you're speaking to sponsors who want to sponsor your show. Like, well, actually, we're going to get 1,000 people or 2,000, 5,000 people within this venue. You know, yes, your ticket prices may be less, but you're getting more engagement, which means that you will then have the financial backing of sponsors,
big brands,
brands, etc. But on a global scale, in regards to kickboxing, Muay Thai, I think one of the big factors is that there isn't an infrastructure. You know, if there isn't an infrastructure within a sport, as in there isn't a governing body, there isn't this, then you're not going to get sponsors coming in, or even various companies, because then they're not going to know who to go to approach these promotions. So you get a promoter going to sponsor X, so we're trying to put on this show, and they're probably going to turn around and say, okay, well, how many people are you going to get? You know, let me see some statistics. Let me see, you know, who you're going to affect. What can I get? Because essentially a financial backer is someone who wants to, wants a return at some point. You know, they're going to take a risk, etc. But at some point they're going to want a return. And if there isn't that scope, they're not going to invest. You know, so I think an infrastructure needs to be made, and once that's done, then you can then start approaching these sponsors. But going back to your question, I think that in my mind, pack out a venue, get people talking about kickboxing and Muay Thai a bit more. Yeah. So we can get to the levels of
and really
boxing,
showcase the
MMA, etc. Because MMA has had a huge rise within, I'd say, the last 5 to 10 years within the UK. You know, and a lot of the time you walk down the street, people are talking about the biggest fight that just happened on the weekend.
Yeah, and they're referring to MMA,
Referring to MMA. More time than not, they call it the UFC.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, I'm going to do a UFC. But it's MMA.
Yeah.
You know, mixed martial arts. But that's, you know, in terms of where we are now compared to where it started in 93, I think it was, in terms of the first ever one.
Yeah.
That's taken a long time for it to grow. But saying that, you get people talking about it all the time. You go to your office, work while you go to, you know, you're sitting on the tube or whatever else. People are talking about the latest fight on the weekend just because there is that interest.
Yeah.
Yes, there's a big difference between the two, but in a sense, you need to get people talking about something. You need to get people involved.
It is big personalities as well. Do you know what I mean? But obviously it helps sell fights, like you're saying. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, so you need to invest in the fighter, really.
Yeah.
Because if you
100%
take a sort of mindset of, all right, if a fighter doesn't want to fight, we're going to chop and change and get someone else. Yeah. Like, that's fine. You're going to get a fight on, people are going to be entertained to a degree, but then you're not really building a character or building, you know, a personality. And I think it's tricky because a lot of people, including myself, aren't necessarily the most brash sort of personalities. I'm not going to be like trying to call this person out, call that person out. Do
you think you need to? Do you think that would help you as a fighter if you was to be like...
If you make a bit more noise.
Yeah, if you make a bit more noise, call fighters out, you know, like do more of what boxing does?
Yeah.
So have those, standoffs where, people that you lose against, you're like, yeah, come, let's go again. I'll beat you this time.
Yeah.
I think generally it would.
Yeah.
But then, let's say if I did it, that'd just be me. And it'd be fake to a degree.
Yeah.
Some people aren't built like that.
So if I ever do call someone out, it would probably be in like a respectful way, like, oh yeah, so I want to fight you on this. Whereas you get other people who, are sort of screaming down the mic saying, X, Y, and Z. To get them involved. And yes, that's going to bring more eyes on the sport to a degree, because we're like, oh, we're really interested in this fight. But I think it depends on the person. Yeah. But generally speaking, the people who make more noise will generally get a bigger push.
Okay, so let's make some noise. Ali, who do you want to fight? Who do you see yourself fighting in the next year?
In the next year.
Don't call them out, just politely in Ali fashion, in the nicest way possible. Who do you see? Who do you want next?
Top three.
Top three. Yes, top three.
If you had 3 fights coming out of this year, and there could be anyone within the UK scene or wherever it may be.
Anywhere. Doesn't have to be UK.
Okay. See, I've not actually thought about that, to be honest.
Right, can we think now? Or
we tried to.
Who's on your radar then?
Who's on my radar? So everyone in the, let's say, top 5 in 70 kilos division. Yeah.
Right.
Because that's the division I'm fighting in.
Okay, so for those who are listening to this podcast for the first time, do you want to name a name?
I could do. I believe, again, I don't know the names, but I know that you've got people like, who is it? Who's in the 70 kilo division? I should know this. You got Skilidis, Storm Gym.
Storm Gym, okay.
Yeah, you've got who else is there? You then have.
Was you meant to fight him before?
I was meant to fight him. No, we never actually been matched. To be honest, moving into the 70 kilo division is something new for me.
Okay.
I was fighting at 75. I was fighting at 72. So it's. So the reason why I don't know the names, to be honest, is because I've never really looked at it. Yeah. Whereas saying that, I mentioned Skillies because I've seen him fight on the same shows. We've always fought, and I've got no issues with the guy. But in a sense, it's trying to get to the top. And I believe he's near the top, or at the top. But I can't remember the other names, to be honest. But saying that, like I said, I'm open to anyone.
Yeah, straight up.
Anyone can.
Anyone can get it, like I said. So
Ali wants smoke. Do you know what I mean?
But so like I said, the plan for this year, 2020, is to be active.
Yeah, straight up. Yeah.
So I've already got a fight lined up in the next
talk to us
near
about
future.
That. Yeah, Bindon, right?
Yeah. So Tony Bindon. So that was just announced, not long ago. And so I've got about 6 weeks to go.
Sick. Okay, and is that in the UK?
Yeah, so that's in UK. That's on the Combat Fight series.
Okay.
Never fought in that promotion before, so it'll be nice to see what they're about. So far, so good in a sense. But yeah, so that's going to be in about 6 weeks' time. The plan is to get, in my mind, I want to aim for 4 or 5 fights this year.
Okay.
4 to 5 fights. So, because I've over the past couple of years just been a bit not as active as I wanted to be.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
And in terms of long term, so beyond 2020,
tell
the listeners a bit more about what you plan to do. So is it still going to be stand up? Yeah, what are the rumours?
We were saying this before, innit? Rumours about hitting that cage, innit, bro? What are you saying? I know you've been practising that jits.
Rumours, okay. So, I don't know what the rumours say. But, no, I mean, so I train Muay Thai, train kickboxing. Always dabbled in other stuff, such as wrestling, jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, nice.
Which is very different, and I enjoy doing those things.
Find it benefits your stand-up?
Yeah, it does. Well, it's not directly. It doesn't directly impact on my stand-up because they're both sort of 2 separate worlds to a degree. But let's say the wrestling, for example.
Yeah.
Wrestlers, generally speaking, the wrestler's mentality is you move forward, and that's it. You don't move back. You don't move backwards at all.
Yeah.
Which is
forward.
quite which is quite a good mindset to have as a fighter, really.
Yeah.
It's not the smartest way at times, but in a sense, what they want to do is you move forward, and if you can't move forward, you don't move backwards. You run to the side. So you're creating angles, which again is beneficial. Right? So there is that. I think just understanding the body in terms of the jiu-jitsu and the technical details around that is going to help develop your creativity in regards to striking.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think 2 of my fights have been in the cage, which was pretty good.
Yeah.
Again, they were K1 fights, kickboxing, but I like the feel. So
yeah.
So who knows?
Does it feel different than being in
It feels different. Yeah.
Are you hinting that
I'm just saying anything could happen.
Ali,
anything could happen.
Bomaye may become in the near future, or the not so near future, may become that MMA fighter.
Potentially,
yeah.
But who knows? Like I wouldn't count it out.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's definitely gonna happen, but I'm not gonna count it out either. Because in a sense, if you can work on the various skill sets, then it's always good to test yourself. And I prefer, I mean, one of the reasons why I fight is just to challenge myself.
Yeah.
You know, so I'd always want to challenge myself. Interesting fact that before I actually started competing in kickboxing and K1 or whatever else, I was more of a fan of MMA than anything else. And generally speaking, I watch more MMA than anything else compared to the other sports.
Yeah. So take from that what you will.
Yeah, but who knows? Who knows?
So moving forward, if fighters could take anything from this podcast again, with your knowledge, your vast knowledge on sport and the body and stuff, what would you say fighters can do to prolong a sustainable and successful career within fighting? In regards to, like, you know what I mean, because we're taking hits on a regular basis, like even if it's around like sparring at 70%, you know, we was having this conversation before the pod, you know what I mean, and I was playing last night, and if you're banging it out every Friday, 100%, taking knock after knock after knock, it ain't good for you. You know what I mean?
No. So it's so in relation to sparring, you're gonna. There's a ceiling to how much you can learn and benefit from slugging it out every single session. You know, that's not the smartest way to train, B, sort of have the long career.
Yeah, for sure.
I heard a quote recently: "A sharp fighter is a good fighter." A mentally sharp fighter is a good fighter.
Yeah.
You know, because you're able to think in your feet. You know, so you need to protect your brain because you only got one of them. You know, and so slugging out and hitting each other really hard and sparring, you're not going to get much from it. You know, it's tricky because you get a lot of, you know, the old school saying of, you know, leave your ego at the door, which I guess needs to be reminded to a lot of people because they don't often do that. And it's tricky because if you go into the mindset of like, I'm gonna go 70% in my sparring, 80%, you know, you also need to have training or sparring partners with the same mindset. Because if you've got someone trying to hit you 90, 100%, you're like, well, okay, well,
you're gonna up it,
you know. Yeah, exactly. You know, naturally. But then you end up sparring because they used to in boxing. A lot of people used to have wars in the gym, you know, which is what led to the detrimental effect in terms of the shortening of the career or long-term effectiveness on the health. You know, so that's one thing I'd say in regards to longevity of a career.
100%.
The other thing is, especially for the younger fighters, is look after your body. So again, I mentioned the sleep, but also you get your mobility drills in. You underappreciate and undervalue how big of an impact it sort of takes. I remember being like 21, 22, 23, not really caring about it, to be honest. Like, you know, you pick up your stuff, leave the gym straight, you know, go straight home. And it's funny because you get the sort of, you know, your teammates who are a bit more older and a bit wiser, you be like, go stretch, and you be like, nah, it's all right, I don't need to. So now I've turned into the old guy at the gym, I guess, and be like, no, you need to stretch, because it does have a big impact in, you know, on how supple you can be in regards to your training as well. There's recovery strategies, that's a big thing. Nutrition is a big factor.
I was just going to ask you about that, moving on to that.
Trying to make sure you're eating sort of a various balanced diet, and I know in this day and age is like you got loads of different diets,
dude. It's so hard to know what to do, man. Like,
what's good?
Yeah,
I guess it's individual based, isn't it?
So it is going to be down to the individual. However, sort of over the years come to the minds of a balance is key. You know, having a balance of everything is good for me personally, but I think in general that's what I'd always recommend. You know, so I wouldn't say cut out a certain, you know, macronutrient, for example. Some people go, you know, low carb, some people go keto, some people go, you know, sort of change their protein sources and whatever else, like vegan, vegetarian, etc. And people have various reasons for doing different things, you know. But I think regardless of what you're doing, I think have a balance. You need to make sure you're getting the right amount. Now, if people often do that, they go on diets to lose weight, you know. But in a sense, if you want to break it down to the fundamental thing, you need to be moving or burning more calories than you actually need to be consuming, you know. Well, then you're gonna get someone saying, "Okay, so I'm just gonna look at my calories. I'm gonna eat burgers all day," and you know, provide.
That's it, innit? You know what I mean?
But then it's within that you then need to be a bit more mindful about what you're having. You know, it's yes, you have a certain amount of calories, but you want to be eating good stuff.
Now, for sure.
And it's about trying to make sure whatever you're having or whatever you're doing, you can make a lifestyle change with it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, rather than I'm going to lose weight for 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks. You know, I'm going to be on this diet for 12 weeks just to lose weight. Because essentially you have a relapse and then you go back to where you were. Because you haven't made a fundamental or long-term change. So you need to be able to make sure you do that, you know. So quite often I enjoy sweet things.
Straight up, everything in moderation.
I've got a sweet tooth.
Okay.
I've got a sweet tooth.
What's your go-to, bro? Or what's your cheat? What's your go-to?
Oh, my go-to. So
how often do you have a little, like, how often do you allow yourself, so say out of a 7-day week, do you know what I mean, how structured are you in regards to letting yourself just not fall off the wagon, but...
I'd have it every couple of days.
Yeah,
hot chocolate's a nice thing for me.
Yeah, you like hot chocolate. Yeah, I see you walking around with hot chocolate.
Especially in the winter as well. Like, it's cold, man. But no, it's... Yeah, having that and fitting that in is something that makes me happy. You know, everyone's going to have the different things.
Yeah.
And in a sense, you need to be mentally well. So mental well-being, etc. is a huge thing at the moment, which people are talking about. But in a sense, if you're not happy, then why are you doing it? You know?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what I'd say.
So where can people find you if they want to book your physiotherapy services?
Yeah, because I do
or just in general, if they want to hook up for a fight.
PTs, anything.
Yeah, tell us.
So I've got my website, yusufalitaleb.com. So that's YUSUFALITALEB. You can look on my socials. So I mainly use Instagram, to be honest, but again, same handle, Yusuf Ali Taleb. But in a sense, if you go from a website, you have the various sections. You've got my fight journey, you've got the physiotherapy service, and you've got personal training services. You know, and then you can use the contact details to get in contact with me from there. If you're sort of in East London or in that area, just come down to the gym. Usually where I train and do a lot more work out there, which is Bloodline Gym. So head down there. I'm happy to sort of, chat to people, give advice, etc. Just drop me a message and we can go from there.
Yeah, nice one, broski. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I think we've covered a few bits. There's definitely a few bits I can take away from that, lad. You know what I mean? Just learning to chill here and there.
Yeah, thank you. Especially the sleep. I think that's what I pulled away from that so much.
And the balance.
You do negate sleep.
Yeah.
The balance thing's important, isn't it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's tricky. It is tricky because you're also trying to, everyone's balancing life. You know, life is a constant change. And, it's just trying to continuously try to strive for that balance.
All right, people. Thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you, Ali, for a very insightful chat. Yeah, that was really good.
Thanks for having me.
Moving forward, like we said at the start, we'll be having a lot more guests on. So if you can subscribe, all them things, what are probably up on the screen somewhere here, and here. And yeah, thank you very much for tuning in.
And share it as well. Make sure you share and comment on this podcast.
And hit Yusuf up at... What's your thing again?
Yusuf Ali Taleb.
Yusuf Ali Taleb.
Or the Instagram, Yusuf Ali Taleb.
There we go.
Anyone could get it. You want to smoke? Nice one, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.